In the sunlit kitchen, I was preparing breakfast. As the aroma of toast wafted through the room, Michael came down the stairs in his school uniform. The sight of him in his navy blue blazer filled me with pride, just as it did every morning. "Good morning, Michael." "Good morning, Mom." My 15-year-old son seemed to grow taller with each passing day. I fondly recalled the years we'd spent together since the divorce 4 years ago. Though I'd been filled with uncertainty then, this life had become our perfect comfort zone. On the table, I'd laid out Michael's favorites: blueberry jam, peanut butter, and fresh coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. "Mom, are you going to be late again today?" Michael asked while spreading jam on his toast. The morning light streaming through the window gently illuminated his handsome profile. "Yes, I have an important contract meeting in the afternoon. It's for a property in Beacon Hill. But I'll definitely be home by evening." "Okay. I have soccer practice, so I think I'll be home around 7. Michael was a regular player on Newton North High School's soccer team. He excelled in his studies too, particularly in math and science where he ranked among the top in his grade. He handled AP courses with ease. He was my pride and joy. After breakfast and seeing Michael off, I changed into my suit. I carefully applied my makeup in front of the mirror and fastened my pearl necklace. I'd bought this necklace as a reward to myself after closing my first major deal. It had become my lucky charm. At 10 a.m., I was preparing for a luxury apartment viewing. As a skilled agent with Coldwell Banker, I was determined to secure another contract today. The view of Boston from the glass elevator was beautiful as always. The sparkle of the Charles River seemed to predict today's success. It was exactly a year ago when this job led me to a life-changing encounter. My meeting with James Foster. As vice president of State Street Corporation, he was considering purchasing this apartment. From our first meeting, I was drawn to his gentlemanly demeanor. His tall figure in a dark gray suit, his intelligent gaze, and occasional gentle smile. After the deal closed, a series of coincidences brought us together. We dated carefully, taking our time, and then became engaged. More than anything, I was overjoyed that Michael accepted him. We'd spend holidays going to brunch together or cheering at Michael's soccer games. A new family dynamic naturally formed. "Michael, I'd like to marry your mother." One evening after dinner, James addressed Michael with a sincere expression. The candlelight on the table softly illuminated that moment. "James, I'm completely in favor." I still vividly remember Michael's smile. That night, James opened a bottle of premium champagne. The two adults toasted, while Michael was served sparkling cider. However, lately, small worries had begun to cross my mind. I started noticing neighborhood gossip about 2 weeks ago. While shopping at Whole Foods, I overheard whispers behind me. "Looks like she's still hanging around this area." Really? It's been 3 years since the divorce was finalized. I know. I even saw her near the school recently. She referred to James's ex-wife, Elizabeth Foster. I'd heard rumors about how she'd fought over the division of assets during the divorce. She came from a prominent Boston family and had apparently been a successful buyer for a luxury boutique before marriage. But I'd avoided digging deeper. The past was the past. We had our future to look forward to. I was also slightly concerned about Michael's behavior. His usual cheerfulness had dimmed, and he'd increasingly retreat to his room early, claiming he was just tired. I thought it might be typical teenage phase, but I'd noticed his hands trembling slightly while holding chopsticks at dinner. Yet when I asked, he'd just brush it off with a smile, saying, "I'm fine." That afternoon at 5 p.m., I was in the middle of an important contract negotiation at a luxury apartment in Back Bay. Just as I was about to get the final signature, my phone rang. It was the police. A stern voice reached my anxious ears. "Mrs. Wilson, please come to the station immediately regarding your son." My hands trembled. Did Michael do something? The detective responded matter-of-factly to my distressed voice. "We'll discuss the details at the station." I interrupted the negotiation, apologizing profusely, and rushed to the police station. The police station at dusk cast an ominous shadow. The gray building, illuminated by the setting sun, loomed intimidatingly before me. Still in my business suit from the interrupted meeting, I hadn't even had time to change my heels. After parking, I hurried toward the entrance. I could feel my heart racing. "Michael." Calling my son's name, I ran up the stairs. Checking my smartphone, I saw 40 minutes had passed since the call. I noticed the stares of other parents. To need police assistance in this upscale neighborhood. But now wasn't the time to worry about such things. As I opened the heavy glass doors, a blast of cold air conditioning brushed my cheeks. Under the harsh fluorescent lights, uniformed officers bustled about. The sound of my heels echoed oddly as I rushed to the reception counter. My clutch bag felt slippery with sweat. "Mrs. Wilson. We've been expecting you. Please show your identification." The receptionist spoke in an official tone while tightening her pale pink lips. I pulled out my driver's license with trembling hands. The tension typical of police stations enveloped my entire body. "Verified. Detective Morrison will be handling your case. This way, please." We proceeded down a long hallway. Posters about juvenile delinquency prevention lined the walls. To think my son would be in such a place. My throat tightened at the thought. "The mother has arrived." Following the detective's voice, the interrogation room door opened. The sight before me nearly stopped my heart. Michael sat hunched in a small chair, still in his uniform, face pale, hands clasped tightly on his knees. His usually dignified expression was gone, replaced by childlike trembling. His tie was crooked, his blazer wrinkled. "Michael." When I called his name, he slowly raised his head. Tear-filled eyes met mine. Dark circles had begun forming under his eyes. How frightened he must have been. "Mom. I didn't do anything." His voice trembled. Looking into my son's desperately pleading eyes, I saw no lie. This was my child whom I'd lived with for 15 years. He couldn't be lying. "It's okay, I'm here with you." I sat next to Michael and placed my hand on his shoulder. I could feel his body trembling slightly. Through his uniform fabric, I felt cold sweat. "Mrs. Wilson." Detective Morrison sat across the table. He appeared to be around 45, with a gentle expression but sharp eyes. The deep wrinkles on his forehead suggested years of experience. On the desk were neatly arranged files and a laptop. "Thank you for coming despite your busy schedule. I need to explain an important matter concerning your son." The detective began speaking in a polite tone. His voice carried a fatherly warmth. However, his next words felt cold. "This afternoon, your son was allegedly involved in a shoplifting incident at the Whole Foods market in Newton District. I'd like you to view the security camera footage. The laptop screen was turned toward us. A black and white video began playing. Inside the upscale supermarket. The timestamp showed June 3, 1630. My chest tightened. At that time, surely Michael was. The footage showed a boy who looked exactly like Michael. Same height, build. Even wearing a uniform identical to what Michael had on today. The boy picked up a luxury brand wallet, checked his surroundings, and smoothly slipped it into his blazer's inner pocket. The movement was so natural, as if planned. I was speechless. The boy in the footage did look exactly like Michael. But it wasn't him. As his mother, I knew instinctively. At this time, my son was at cram school. I immediately objected. I could hear my voice rising slightly. He should have been in class at Cubic Preparatory School. If you check the attendance records. Yes, we'll verify that. Detective Morrison responded calmly. The sound of his note-taking echoed in the quiet room. However, his next words fell heavily. However, the characteristics of the person in the security footage are remarkably similar. Height, build, uniform, even the uniform worn that day matches. The detective paused the video and pointed to an enlarged section. Indeed, everything matched down to the details. The school crest on the blazer, the tie color, even the bag design. Even Michael's characteristic slightly hunched walking style. The camera angles left minimal blind spots, and the facial features, footage tracked across 6 cameras. But this is not my son. I insisted firmly. I held Michael's hand. It was cold. But I had certainty. Strong certainty in believing my son. The interrogation continued for nearly 2 hours. Alibi verification, questioning. Michael's school life, friendships, recent behavior. The questions covered every detail. My son occasionally answered with a trembling voice. I listened carefully to each word beside him. Finally, words of release came. We'll conclude for today. However, we request your continued cooperation with the investigation. We may contact you if new information emerges in the coming days. When we left the station, the sun had completely set. The early summer breeze gently caressed our tired bodies. On the way to the parking lot, Michael grabbed my sleeve. "Mom, will everyone at school find out?" His voice trembled. He must be worried about rumors at school. For a child his age, that could be a matter of life and death. Even after getting in the car, Michael remained silent. The anxiety was deeply etched on his profile, illuminated by the streetlights. His hand still trembled slightly as he fastened his seatbelt. I gripped the steering wheel tightly. I silently vowed to uncover the truth. This was the beginning of a battle I couldn't surrender as a mother. Looking at my son's reflection in the rearview mirror, I strengthened my resolve. Someone was trying to frame my son. I would expose their dark intentions. The next morning, after a sleepless night, I sat at my computer from early dawn. The morning sun streaming through the window illuminated photos of my son at school on the screen. Pictures of Michael in his uniform, chatting with friends. There must be something I could do to prove his innocence. Michael was still sleeping in his room upstairs, exhausted. Last night, I'd slept beside him for the first time in years. Watching his peaceful sleeping face as he dozed off in my arms like he used to in elementary school, I vowed to protect him. Soccer trophies lined his bedside table. His excellent report cards still proudly adorned the wall. The clock showed 5:30 a.m. As I gazed at the misty cityscape, I recalled the details of yesterday's interrogation one by one. The security camera footage. The perfect match. That in itself was unnatural. I have the right to investigate too. With trembling hands, I picked up my smartphone and called James. Though it was still early morning, he answered immediately. His usually calm voice carried a strong determination today. "I'll be right there. Let's think about this together." There was no hesitation in James's voice. 30 minutes later, he arrived at my house. He wasn't in his usual suit but dressed casually. His typically neat tie was absent today. Under his eyes, I could see traces that he too hadn't slept. "I've been looking into various things since last night," James began explaining as he opened his laptop on the table. "Let's start what we can do, separate from the police investigation. First, we need to thoroughly check the details of the crime scene." Taking a sip of coffee, he pointed to the screen. The Whole Foods Market floor plan. Security camera placement. And the situation in the store at the time of the incident. We need to review everything from scratch. We headed to the supermarket as soon as it opened. James gently held my nervous hand. The warmth of his hand slightly eased my anxious heart. "I'll help too. We'll definitely get to the truth." Thanks to James's credibility as vice president of State Street Corporation, we easily secured a meeting with the store manager. His position sometimes carried significant weight. We were also allowed to view additional security camera footage. "Actually, there's been someone I've been concerned about." A female employee in her mid-20s approached us. Her name tag read Sarah Johnson. "There's been a woman who often takes photos in the store, especially of students in uniforms. I noticed it casually at first, but it started feeling unnatural." James and I exchanged glances at her words. Sarah continued. "Particularly since last month, that person's visits have increased. When I'm at the register, we often make eye contact. But when we do, she quickly looks away." As we heard more details, new facts emerged one after another. The woman tended to visit at specific times. After school hours. When many students in uniforms would be shopping. Come to think of it, she seemed to take a lot of photos of students wearing the same uniform as your son. At first, I thought she might be a parent. As we carefully reviewed the security camera footage, we found several unnatural coincidences. The uniform worn by the perpetrator was indeed from Newton North High School, like Michael's. However, looking closely, it perfectly replicated features unique to Michael. The repair mark on the right sleeve. The carefully mended tear from last month's soccer game tackle, which I had fixed. This mark, visible in photos posted on social media, mysteriously appeared on the perpetrator's uniform too. Even Michael's unique habits. The slight tilt of the school badge on the left shoulder. This was a characteristic that developed from Michael always carrying his soccer bag on his left shoulder. "This is..." James furrowed his brow. He repeatedly rewound and checked the footage on screen. "Someone is deliberately trying to impersonate Michael. And quite systematically at that." We quickly began investigating social media. Carefully checking Michael's posts and photos tagged by friends. Then we found an eerie shadow in the posts. A figure in the background. A group photo at a cafe after school. A woman's reflection in the window glass. Another photo. At the school gate. A shadowy figure in a luxury car parked in the distance. And at the soccer game. A lonely woman sitting at the edge of the bleachers. This account. James's voice trembled. His face paled at the name displayed on screen. It's Elizabeth's. His ex-wife's social media account had secretly stored photos of Michael. Him in his school uniform, after school, with friends. Looking at the posting dates, they had been intensively taken over the past 2 months. Like a stalker. Most had been taken with a telephoto lens. She often took photos in the store. Sarah's earlier words now carried heavy significance. As we printed out and arranged the photos chronologically, evidence of obsessive surveillance emerged. Michael's daily activities were recorded like a surveillance log. Feeling near certainty, we immediately contacted the police. We submitted the new evidence to Detective Morrison. This is compelling evidence. Seriousness seeped into the detective's voice. He carefully examined each photo spread out on the desk. Clear signs of stalking. This definitely suggests a premeditated crime. The police investigation intensified. Reviewing past security camera footage revealed evidence of Elizabeth's suspicious behavior. Her lurking around the high school. Purchasing the same uniform at the uniform shop. Following Michael. It told a story of almost manic obsession. New security camera footage revealed even more shocking facts. Elizabeth handing cash to a boy with the same build as Michael. The boy was later identified as a student from another high school. Part of a perfect disguise operation. The decisive evidence was captured by security cameras around Elizabeth's apartment. On the day of the incident, she returned home with shopping bags. Inside was a uniform identical to Michael's. And the suspicious boy entering and leaving her apartment. The perfect plan was slowly revealing its full scope. For her to go this far. James choked on his words. Deep sadness and confusion showed at his former wife's actions. There must be a reason. I answered quietly. Looking out the window, I had a sense of all the pieces falling into place. Detective Morrison's voice echoed in the quiet interrogation room as he presented the decisive evidence. She lost considerable assets in the divorce with Mr. Foster. The detective carefully turned pages, unraveling Elizabeth's past. According to the Boston Herald, until 2019, she was active in high society as a celebrity. She was also highly regarded as a buyer for luxury brands. The article showed a photo from a glamorous party. Elizabeth in an elegant designer dress, wearing a graceful smile. However, that radiance changed completely after her divorce from James. According to divorce settlement records, she lost over 95% of her assets. Furthermore, her social standing plummeted. Elizabeth's parents, concerned about their daughter's destructive lifestyle, had even excluded her from their inheritance. James let out a deep sigh at the detective's words. His expression showed complex emotions as someone who knew the truth behind the divorce. As the investigation progressed, the full scope of her revenge plot came to light. The meticulous preparations that began 2 months before the incident. Thoroughly observing Michael's daily routine, preparing identical uniforms, securing accomplices. Then executing at the most effective timing. The selection of the crime date also seemed calculated. The detective pulled out new documents. This day, you had an important contract meeting scheduled. Moreover, it was right after the wedding date with Mr. Foster had been set. My chest tightened. Framing Michael was her perfect revenge. A plan to completely overturn our happiness as we tried to build a new family. What's more, the target was an innocent 15-year-old boy. The search of Elizabeth's apartment took place on a rainy morning. A room in an old apartment building, far from the luxury residential area. A place unimaginable from her former glamorous lifestyle. When the entrance door opened, we were stunned. The entire wall was covered with photos of Michael. Him at school, after school, with friends. Hundreds of photos arranged meticulously like observation records. Next to them were photos of James and me. Our happy expressions marked with red X's. This will be decisive evidence. Detective Morrison pointed to a diary found on the desk. An expensive leather-bound diary. Probably a remnant from her days of glory. Inside were incredibly detailed plans. There were also detailed maps showing Michael's behavior patterns, and even James's and my schedules. Everything had been perfectly calculated. On the last page of the diary, there was a single line written in distorted handwriting. Your happy family game ends here. The arrest was made that afternoon. Elizabeth was returning from her weekend yoga class in the upscale neighborhood. Still maintaining an elegant appearance with her silk scarf. I haven't done anything wrong, she calmly declared, holding out her hands to the police officers as if it were someone else's problem. You have the right to remain silent. And during the upcoming interrogation, you have the right to have a lawyer present. Elizabeth smiled, interrupting the detective's words. Her expression showed no sign of regret. Rather, it carried an air of satisfaction, as if she had accomplished something. The news of her arrest sent shockwaves through the community. A despicable revenge plot by a daughter of a prestigious Boston family. All newspapers reported it simultaneously, leaving local residents speechless. That elegant Mrs. Foster. She was always so polite. But lately, she had been acting strange. Neighborhood housewives' gossip whispered on street corners. However, our battle wasn't over yet. Later, Elizabeth's lawyer proposed a settlement. An offer to resolve things quietly in exchange for a substantial settlement amount. Probably her parents' wish to avoid scandal. We will pay $1 million. This could also serve as your son's future education fund. I immediately refused, slamming my hand on the table, the sound echoing through the conference room. My son's honor cannot be bought with money. Caroline's determination was firm. The decision to pursue criminal charges wasn't from mere vindictiveness. It was a decision to prevent similar victims in the future. And above all, it was a crucial matter affecting Michael's life. In court testimony, Elizabeth tried to justify her actions until the end. They took everything from me. They don't deserve to be happy. However, the evidence was clear. A premeditated crime. The despicable means of using a minor. And the selfish nature of the motive. The verdict came as autumn deepened. Elizabeth received a suspended prison sentence and was ordered to undergo psychiatric treatment. After all the truth came to light, an explanation meeting was held at school. Students and parents gathered in the auditorium. The principal officially acknowledged Michael's innocence and strictly prohibited rumors about the incident. We deeply regret that one of our students fell victim to such a despicable plot. However, we are sincerely pleased that the truth has come to light and Michael's innocence has been proven. After school, I went to pick up Michael. My son waiting at the school gate looked somewhat brighter. His uniform appearance was as dignified as ever. The anxious shadow was no longer visible. "Mom, thank you for believing in me." Michael showed a full smile for the first time in a while after getting in the car. There was no more hesitation in his eyes. "Of course, you're my precious son." I gently stroked his head. At the Boston District Court, the heavy wooden doors opened, and the judge entered. Everyone involved in the case sat holding their breath in the gallery. The cold air conditioning heightened the tension. My palm holding Michael's hand was slightly sweaty. James gently placed his hands on our shoulders. "The defendant is sentenced to 2 years in prison, suspended for 4 years." The judge's voice solemnly echoed. Though stern in his black robe, his eyes showed a hint of mercy. In this case, the defendant's actions were highly premeditated and malicious. However, considering the results of the psychiatric evaluation, it was deemed appropriate to provide an opportunity for rehabilitation. Elizabeth sat quietly with closed eyes in the defendant's seat. Her former arrogant attitude had disappeared, showing signs of deep fatigue. The psychiatric evaluation had revealed severe adjustment disorder underlying her actions. The loss of social status from the divorce had pushed her to the edge mentally. Furthermore, I ordered the commencement of treatment at a designated medical facility within 2 weeks of the verdict's confirmation. Also, contact with the victim's family is prohibited. Elizabeth's parents sat in the front row listening to the verdict. Her mother Mary maintained the dignified bearing befitting a former prestigious family, occasionally wiping away tears with her handkerchief. After the verdict, she approached us. "We will focus on our daughter's treatment. And I sincerely apologize for everything." Sincere words of apology. Mary's expression showed a strong will to guide her daughter in the right direction. The parents had already arranged for a specialized medical facility in a quiet New Hampshire town. She would take her first steps toward healing her mental wounds in a lush green environment. Treatment progressed carefully under Dr. Stevens, renowned in the psychiatric field. 2 counseling sessions per week. Medication. And group therapy through interaction with others facing similar issues. Gradually, changes began to appear in Elizabeth's mind. According to the facility's counselor, she gradually became able to view her actions objectively. Her relationship with her parents also began to heal. Particularly walks with her mother became a daily routine, where they would reminisce about childhood memories. 6 months after the incident, a letter arrived for us. The sender was Elizabeth Foster. The envelope bore the facility's postmark. "I am sorry." Simple yet heartfelt words of apology. The handwritten letters showed slight trembling. Written not on luxury stationery but ordinary paper, it carried a sense of sincerity. Back then, I had lost myself. "Michael, Caroline, James, my attempts to destroy your happiness can never be forgiven. Through daily therapy, as I face my distorted mind, I deeply realize this." The letter detailed her treatment progress. Her relationship with her parents was gradually healing, and she had resolved to begin a new life. She planned to open a small antique shop in the New Hampshire town. She was trying to apply her former buyer experience in a different way. "I hope this shop becomes my first step toward atonement. Though not flashy, I want to build a new life while sincerely engaging with each item." And then, as cherry blossoms heralded spring's arrival, our wedding day came at the historic St. Mary's Church in suburban Boston. Light streaming through century-old stained glass cast beautiful rainbow shadows on the altar. James smiled gently beside me in my white wedding dress. His black tuxedo conveyed dignity with warmth. And Michael stood as our witness, his expression more mature than his years. At the reception speech, Michael held the microphone with slight nervousness. As the venue fell silent, his refreshing voice rang out. "I'm happy to welcome my new dad." The venue erupted in warm applause. Among the guests was Detective Morrison. A deep trust had been built through the incident. Tears of joy glistened in the detective's eyes. "Since Mom raised me alone, she's given me so much love. Sometimes strict, but always watching over me warmly. And now, with James, no, Dad joining us, our family has grown stronger. I feel our bonds have deepened even more after overcoming that difficulty." I couldn't hold back tears at Michael's words. Beside me, James too forgot his usual composure and became misty-eyed. Our bonds, strengthened through trials, were something everyone present could feel. At the end of the reception, we released white doves with hopes for our new life. The sight of the doves taking flight was bright and strong, like our future. The gentle spring breeze seemed to bless our new beginning. A week later, a final letter arrived from Elizabeth. "I sincerely pray for your happiness. And I too will begin a new life. Moving beyond the past and taking new steps forward." It was a new beginning for everyone. Outside the window, cherry blossoms swayed in the wind, petals dancing in the air. As if throwing blessing flowers upon our new life.